you so much for being such a crucial and vital part of the On-Air Advocate community. We have surrounded ourselves this week with tons of celebration, empowerment, and support. And one of those people that has been really a supporter of the On-Air Advocate and worked with such synergy with us is my friend, Mary Tutterow. She is the author of The Heart of the Caregiver, an amazing, amazing, amazing workbook that we are going to walk through in a little bit. But she is a caregiver, an author, an advocate. And so, Mary, for those of you who possibly have not seen you on our other regular On-Air Advocate platform that are maybe meeting you for the first time, could you just run through a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah. My husband, Wynn, and I care for our daughter, Mary Addison. Well, we have two kids. William is our son who is graduated from college and on his own. Yay. And then our daughter, Mary Addison, is 26, and she's mentally and physically challenged and has a chronic seizure disorder. She sees us pretty much every day. And somewhere during all that caring, we also cared for my mother-in-law through her cancer and dementia. And so we have a lot of experience with caregiving. And somewhere along the way, I got so lost. I felt so lonely and so overwhelmed that I really suffered a depression and really lost myself. And I began to find hope through the messages I was reading in the Bible, so much so that I started a small group at our church and began teaching it, A, just to not be lonely, and B, to really see if these other scriptures were helping other people as much as they were helping me. And that's how I came to write The Heart of the Caregiver. And now it's a curriculum, and people can do the workbook. There you go. Thank you very much. They can do it all on their own. You can order it on my website, or you can do an online course. It's online with a download of the whole workbook and videos to go along with it. Or you can join a small group. We have online groups, or start one in your own community. So
I was just excited because in the back of the book, I love the things that we can give individuals that are their hands-on, that they can start actively working on right away. You know, you can jump onto her website today. You can download the 5 steps to transformation, which is what we're going to work through today, right there. And so, you know, get over there and start working. And so this is something that I love because you don't have to wait for, you know, a certain time to implement it. You can do it at any time. And what's wonderful is that I love kind of like that tagline of The Heart of the Caregiver, going from overwhelmed to overjoyed. Yeah. And really, that's what it's all about. And something that we've talked about before is, you know, I love your transparency and your faith. Because as we know, having hope and belief is truly what drives us forward each and every day. But that transparency to let parents know it's not always good. There is that mourning process. There is that anger. There is that frustration. There is those feelings. And you are validated for feeling those feelings. Now, feeling those feelings every single day and letting it consume you is not going to change your situation. But, you know, you have the right to have them and to work through that process. And so, Mary, you give us such a great way to do this with that 5 steps to transformation. So can you first go through kind of what that first step is? So somebody's on that roadmap, they're feeling overwhelmed, they're feeling like, everything is crashing down around them. Where do they begin?
Well, they begin with assessing their situation. And, you know, before we get launched in this, Tammy, I want to say this. You know, we developed these 5 steps to transformation because most people don't admit they need help until they're at,
right.
And you're at total burnout. I mean, yes, you know, I got help when my daughter was a baby, and yes, we got help for our marriage from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But I kept thinking, oh, I got this. Oh, I got this. And it really wasn't until I was in crisis that I really started to do the work that was going to save my life and save our marriage. And, you know, it's taken a long time for us to get to where we are, but I don't want to discourage anyone, and that's what the 5 steps of transformation is. You can look at this, and even if you can't do all the work right now, right in this moment, you can see that there's a way out. In 5 really basic steps, you can start turning your crazy ship around. you know that you're going nuts and the ship seems to be headed over the waterfalls, but you can turn this around and get it back on track. So assessing is the very first thing, because when you're in this mode of what's running amok is your mind is trying to deal with everything that's going on in your life all at once and all your hard feelings about it. And if you take a minute and get a piece of paper and write down everything that's going on in your life, and like that, I mean, I wrote on, as an example, on the 5 steps of transformation, I'm caring for my mother with dementia and my daughter with autism. We are nearly broke and our marriage is on the rocks. I have taken so much time off from work that I'm about to get fired. My house is a wreck, and there is no one to help. And that's facts. I mean, that's exactly what was going on. And I think a lot of people can add a whole lot more. My neighbor drives me crazy. I haven't had time to weed the yard. It's out of control.
Right.
I hate my child's doctor. The side effects of medicine have made my loved one seemingly worse than they were before. I mean, just go through and name everything that is driving you crazy, that is a responsibility that's on your list,
right,
is something that you're just putting up with right now. I mean, there's a lot of stuff we just are putting up with, And when you see that list, you'll realize that it's not just the person that you're caring for that is driving you crazy. They just happen to be the trigger. They just happen to be the constant drip.
Right.
And there are just days when all that other stuff is getting to you and they hit that button and you go ballistic.
It's like the tip of the iceberg.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's not fair to blame them, because it really isn't just taking care of someone with exceptional needs that does this.
And also, as you're watching this live, make sure if you are catching it on the replay, we're at number 1. We're at step 1, which is assess. Know that you can drop any comments below, as well as like this. And on Sunday, we're going to be drawing a winner for the Heart of the Caregiver book. So I know we missed that in the beginning because we've been a little backwards today, like broadcasting on other people's pages and everything like that. Whatever has happened that way. But the first thing, which, Mary states, is to assess your situation so you can see every single area of things that are going on and realize that sometimes that overwhelmed feeling isn't just coming from that space, so that you can start to work on it, right? And kind of sift through all of that stuff. So
even if you can't change it, just being able to recognize it helps a lot.
Right. And so is that where step 2 comes in, with that, like acknowledging it, the acknowledgement of the situation, where you're just recognizing to say, this truly is my situation and it may not change. I mean, what do you do with that?
With acknowledgement comes expressing your feelings. And when, we do this in the first session of the Heart of the Caregiver, is we get everybody to introduce themselves and who they are and who they care for and who else is in their family, kind of a thing. We don't quite go through the whole list. But, and then we ask them, how does your situation make you feel? And obviously they found their way to a group. They're not that happy about it. Very few people say, oh, I'm so fulfilled and overwhelmed and full of joy, and this is all wonderful. There are words like, I am envious of my friends. They have so much more freedom. I am embarrassed and ashamed of how angry I get. I have so little patience, with my loved one. the sense of isolation, and I don't seem to have any friends anymore, and I'm very offended at the fact that no one wants to help me, even though they said they were my good friends. I mean, we go through all kinds of feelings, and getting those feelings out on the table is a big part of acknowledging. And then you begin to recognize that, again, not all those feelings are coming from caring for someone. They're feelings that have a lot to do with the other things that are going on in your life as well.
Right, right.
And it helps so much to put light on the craziness.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I said, your crazy ship. There's this ship of rats, and they're all scurrying around in the darkness. And when you shine a light on it and say, well, but here it is,
right,
it helps so much. Those are just two very simple things you can do all by yourself or in a group that really can help you breathe easier right away.
right. So those first two steps, and if you haven't been able to download this, which it is going to be a free download, and so we're going to give you the links and stuff for that if you haven't already hopped on to do it, is the first is assess, the second is acknowledge. And so if somebody wants to drop those in the comments below, that would be great as well. So after we've done that process and we acknowledge it, which is helpful, I feel, in the cleansing process. It's kind of like digging deep and digging inside and realizing what it is. Where does that align with things? Where does that next step 3 come?
Well, and 3 being alignment is, you can either listen to the insanity now that you are well aware of it. You can listen to it and let it run your life, or you can say, there's something else I can align with. In other words, you can align your whole world up with, I'm depressed, I don't have any help, just like, how I acknowledge and assess. And I can just let those feelings and let that truth be my truth and go ahead and just run my whole caregiving experience and basically all of my life. It's going to affect everything.
Right.
Or I can say there's got to be a better way. And that's where everything really turned around for me, was when I realized that the truth of what the world was telling me about my daughter and about her diagnosis, about that because I couldn't keep up with my friends, I was going to be left behind socially, because we were spending every last dime we had on medical treatments and stuff for my daughter. We were going broke and life would just be miserable. All these things. But when I looked at it through the truth of God's word, I heard really different things, like the first will be last and the last will be first. And God uses the weak to shame the strong and the foolish to shame the wise. And things like where there is weakness, God's power rests more greatly. And that whole idea that I didn't have to be smart enough, I didn't have to know enough, I didn't have to have all the right answers, that God loved my daughter more than I did. And God loved my husband's mother more than I did. And that he was in charge of their lives and my life. And that I had a choice in how I wanted to think about all this.
Right. Because our mind is, one of our most powerful tools. It really is, it's how we want to process it. What is the one quote that is, life is, like 10% of what actually happens to you and 90% of how you look at it, your perspective on it. But I don't discount. I feel like as caregivers, which we've both have talked about, you have to go through that mourning process. You have to go through that pain. You have to recognize, and it does happen. You had friends. Guess where all your friends are? They're gone. Guess your life, your career, the things you do have completely changed. And so you have to give grace to that, and give yourself that time to do that assessing, the acknowledge, and then that aligning.
And the aligning, aligning isn't, It's not easy, because it's not easy to quiet those emotions and feelings. And so, with alignment, the way it happened with me was I would get to a crossroads where I could either flip out and yell and scream or throw a huge pity party, or I could forgive and allow and accept and not worry. And it took me a long time, and I'm still working on it. It takes a long time to get from where you just absolutely want to go crazy on somebody to where you can go, okay, and just allow. I mean, that takes a lot of hard work. But the very first step is just realizing you have a choice. You don't have to let the anger and pain and frustration and resentment and jealousy and envy and all those things that you just identified, they don't have to run your life.
Right.
Do you have a choice? And just being able to stop at that crossroads. And then if you want to go ahead and go crazy, go crazy.
Right.
Because the next time when you get to the crossroads, you'll remember you have a choice. And maybe this time you'll wait long enough before you go crazy that you will actually let yourself make a seemingly impossible choice just to let it go. I mean, I used to love to argue with people so much. I always had to win. Always. And it just was killing me.
Right.
And second guessing and questioning everything.
Right.
And now, even though there are times when I still want to go, I don't think that's right, I'm not so sure, instead of going crazy, I get quiet and I just listen, and I realize I have a choice. There is another voice that can tell me which way to go and what's right and what's wrong. A very calm voice of reason.
Right.
And it has helped my life so much. It has helped my family so much, and getting to that crossroads and realizing I don't have to align with anger. I can align with forgiveness and love.
Yeah. And also, would you say in that alignment, the positivity, like you have the choice when this becomes an addition onto your life that you weren't sure you were going to travel, you have the power to decide if you are going to align yourself with like-minded people, with people that are going through those same trials and tribulations. You're going to share your story. You're going to share your journey so that you realize in that, together, that you're not alone, in that process. And I know that for some, it's a hard process to start because they haven't done that acknowledgement also piece of it. Like, this is truly my reality. They feel, so sometimes it's not only you feeling shameful of the situation or that you're anger or whatever, but sometimes people feel that when this has been thrusted upon them or blessed or bestowed upon them, that they feel some type of shame that, like, for your child, that they're not meeting the bar, that they won't be what everyone else is, they won't be like this. And so until you allow yourself to open up and align yourself with others going through that same journey, and we've talked about, being in that same body of water. Your daughter has a completely different condition than my son, but we both sit on the same body of water, in that same pool, ocean. It's you and me, and you're just on a different boat, but we're all there. And so I feel like that's a huge choice, because as to why the Heart of the Caregiver was born, that support that you knew, you know what I'm saying, that you needed, is that you need those others around you, and you need to, allow them to also come into your space, which sometimes isn't easy because there's a lot of acceptance.
And you need them to know, and you need other people to know that you are not a bad person for having these feelings.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
You're not a bad person, and you're not in a hopeless situation. And again, I believe that you can do this work with God, you and God together in His Word. But there is something about connecting with other people and being transparent and putting it out on the table that just heals something. It really does. It's shining a light on it, and it really does heal something. But you had a really good point there, Tammy, and that is it's so hard to align with a unique, miraculous, loving, peaceful way of life when everyone around you is looking for the drama and the tragedy and the oh, woe is me. And it's so important to get in a group of people who speak of the possibilities that come with God. And so that's that whole number 4, which is affirming, and get people that you can talk about God's truth with. Affirming, some people it's as simple as just putting a piece of scripture on your refrigerator or your bathroom mirror. But, it really is getting around other people who talk the same talk, who'll say, I have no idea what I'm doing. I can't possibly tell a doctor it's okay to take out half of my child's brain when she's 2 years old. How could I possibly do that? I don't know.
Right.
Instead of being around the people who are constantly saying, oh, you must be so wonderful because God only gives children like this to people like you. And then you start believing your own hype, thinking, well, I guess I must have to know all the answers. I guess it must be up to me. I guess I have to be smart enough. I guess I have to rise to the occasion. No, you don't. The whole idea is I love and serve a God who knows me and knows my family member and knows this disease or disability inside and out and can bring great good from this. And I am not alone, and this is not up to me. That is so helpful, to be around other people who help you talk that and then walk it.
Right. And I think that sometimes people get the misconception, especially when you've maybe just started your journey. They look at individuals like yourself who has written this book. And even though we talk the talk and that transparency, of doing that, and like myself, I have people ask that all the time, you just keep on going and you keep on driving and you keep on doing this. And, there are many years, like, you said probably between the ages, of like your child being 11 and 13, and I said at least 7 years in, before I was able to stop the, getting up out of the doctor's office to cry for a minute, to shed the tears. And it still happens. I mean, my son had his surgery, a major surgery 2 years ago, and I had to leave. I was smart enough to say to the doctor, hey, I'm going to call you tomorrow because I need some time. I need some time to process this. Is that, at every milestone, at every turn, that your child is going to make or your elderly loved one is making in their journey, there is that mourning, and you have to give yourself, as we talked about, that grace for that. And,
you do, and that's just it's very difficult to affirm things and live for things that are invisible and seem impossible, and to allow them to affect your life when the here and now seems to be demanding something of you. But I've written a second book called The Peaceful Caregiver that I hope will be out soon, and it's all about the here and now. The present isn't what you think it is. There is a choice for peace regardless of your circumstances. There is a peaceful place where you can go spiritually and emotionally, and what the results of caregiving from that kind of emotional place is it's so powerful. Because then what starts to happen is you go from just these being words, conversations with friends and stuff, to when you can actually put the fifth one is action. You can act on this new alignment that, like I wrote here in this fifth one, it says, I will stop talking about all the things that are discouraging. Okay, because we have a tendency to pick up the phone and talk to people and just tell them how absolutely horrible your life is, And he said, and I'm going to start giving thanks for what I'm learning. And that sounds easy, but there have been days it's been hard to thank God for our situation. It's especially when it's really bad. But I will take time to stop each day and realize that I'm not alone and that God loves me. And that's very hard to do because we all think there's this should, need to, ought to, why didn't you voice in the back of every person that's a caregiver, in the back of their head that's constantly going, you didn't do enough. Why haven't you? And don't take a break, because if you do, this person might die, this person might get sicker, this person might have a reaction. And if you don't do it, it's all going to be your fault. And it's not.
Right.
It's not, you know.
Right.
And then I will welcome the awkward help of well-meaning friends and neighbors. I know you know this, you know, it's so hard to let people help you.
It is. It is. And especially because I think there's that extra layer, you know, that we're fearful too, that if we do that, what if something more happens? You know what I'm saying? What, because they're not there every day, right? They don't do the 24 hours a day. And what if they're with them? And what if they administer the medication wrong? Or they move them and transport them, you know, transfer them wrong. And you live with that fear and then that guilt. And then, you know, it's just, it's that snowball. But I think that so much of it comes from even the beginning of this is recognizing and acknowledging it is that first part. And, you know, as you grow through this process, you know, the fight doesn't become easier. You just kind of master that a little bit easier. You realize when you're at your point. I think that once you acknowledge, I don't know if you get to that, but I'm like, I'm at my point. There's not about any more I can take for the day. And though I choose in my life not to always regurgitate out that negativity, you know what I'm saying? I process it more like, and I give myself grace, and I'm like, okay, you know, take a deep breath.
Because if you don't recognize it, it's just sitting there going, whoa, whoa, right. Like a nasty force field. It gets all over everybody and everything.
Yes, it does. And so I think that recognizing it first, because how do you ever get through those other steps, like you said, until you're able to sit down and say, this is a lot of stuff. It's a lot. And I don't think, and I've heard that too. Well, I don't know, you know, you're such a special, you know, a special needs parents. We're special parents. You know, in some circumstances, we're just going with it. You're flying at the seat of your pants, you know? And that's why I feel that it's so important, the heart of the caregiver, the on-air advocate community, the journeys that we've been on and able to share with parents that maybe if they were available when we started our journey, you know, might have made, you know, the double thought. I think back to one of the biopsies that was crucial in knowing some more information for long-term about my son. And he was 3 when it happened. And I didn't know. I was not the Tammy Flynn that, you know, is like the medical expert now. Your own mom medical expert, because, you know, you become that back then. And I think, oh, but we could know. And the doctors are like, well, we can't go back in. You can't know. And if I would have known, and I would have known the question, but I didn't. And so I think that when we have to give ourselves grace, we didn't know. But then also when you align yourself with those amazing people around you that maybe are a few years ahead of you and have traveled that journey, you open yourself up to lightening a little bit of that burden sometimes, because they give you ideas, they give you thoughts. You know you're not alone.
That's right. And to that end, that's part of the acknowledging. When you really have mastered this process, then you can go back and acknowledge, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have to know. I mean, it's not an excuse just to be completely oblivious, but the decisions we have to make so often with surgeries and therapies and medicines and all that kind of stuff for another human being,
right?
That's tough. That's really tough. And if you don't have a higher power guiding you, I don't know how you could ever have peace or ever make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
what I like to tell others a lot of times that maybe are not in this world as much is that it's not the daily service, it's not the daily support. As a caregiver, you're advocating for the quality of someone else's life. That's like every single piece of it. every day of your life. And if you have had a child, that was born that way, that could be 80 years. That could be 80. You think to yourself and you're like, this isn't just like, oh, I need to fight because I need to get insurance. This is every single thing. Are they going to move? Are they going to get up? Are they going to have self-worth? Are they going to live their life alone? If I pass away, who's going to take care of them? Who's going to be there? I mean, it's just, that continuation. And so realizing that it's a lot.
It is a lot. But then, as part of this act, I think the greatest act that's essential is forgiveness. Mm-hmm. And not just forgiving other people, because like we've talked about before, I became a very prickly person. Doctors and teachers and my mother-in-law's oncologist would look at me coming and like go, oh God.
There's Mary.
And I became so prickly, and I expect people to be able to do their job, and I expect people to be nice to me, but they're under pressure too. And they are struggling. They have their own list of problems like I do. Caregivers aren't the only people that have a lot going on and a lot of responsibility. And so it became so much easier just to forgive. Mm-hmm. And to allow and use those words and accept and just assume that people are doing the best they can, even when they're rude, that mm-hmm. they've got problems just like I do, and to not escalate things by getting offended and by being a victim, but to enjoy the freedom of just being able to let that go. Just let it go and just forgive it. That's tough, but because you want to get irate, because you want to hold them as accountable and responsible for your family member's health as you are trying to be. Mm-hmm. And I don't know about you, but I've been let down by a lot of people in the medical world. A lot of confusion and disappointment and false promises. And
because you're going to them as the expert, especially when you start your journey, you don't know. But I think before we wrap up, to also acknowledge that all of these steps, I think, also actively work if you are the person caregiving for yourself. I know in my world, I have many friends that suffer from different chronic illness and, mental health issues and those things. And so, getting through that process and getting every day. And I think to myself sometimes, for all of those warriors that are out there, we have our child and then we're that fighter, and we can, granted, we can't completely rejuvenate because we don't sleep for like 30 years, but or longer. But we are able to not have, chronic pain, medical issues, being in the hospital ourselves, and then having to advocate for ourselves. Because a lot of times that happens. And I think that in that same thing, people who lose because of an illness that may come, job loss, and life changes, and possibly getting a divorce, and abilities that their body used to be able to do, even though they cognitively and developmentally are okay. I think that has that same mourning process, and having to recognize and having to align yourself with a new community of people that are going to support as well.
Well, I believe so strongly in this, Tammy, that there's a lot of conversation around self-care, for caregivers, and it's not bubble baths and read a good book and lunch with your friends and stuff like that. And it's really doing internal work, and emotional and spiritual work to get yourself right, to deal with your past demons, to get things, prioritized at what's really bugging me, that kind of stuff. And I mean this not just in the world of us who are family members, but I see so many direct care service workers who've come into our home to be a PCA or CNA or whatever for our daughter. I see it in the nurses in the hospital. I see it in the doctors, that, and I see it because they've allowed a system that isn't very loving to dictate, and people are just too tired. Everyone's just too tired. Everybody's at the end of their rope. Everybody's pushed to the limit.
Right.
And I believe that this is a trend, not just for us caring for our children and our family members. I think it's something that's going to have to happen in the world of healthcare, where the self-care has to come first, the self-compassion,
Mm-hmm.
and self-awareness.
Yes,
You
definitely.
know,
Definitely.
so it's a big deal. And
Yes.
I love, we started this 5 steps of transformation because it was for people who have triage and who needed triage, who needed something quickly. And I know that it can take a long time to work through this, which is well worth it. But
Mm-hmm.
just knowing that there's this path can really help people. And I'm so glad you put stuff like this on the On Air Advocate.
Okay, so let's go back through this. And like I said, I want to thank everybody who has hopped back on and who is going to catch this tonight on the replay. They won't even know that we were on somebody else's page doing this. They won't even know for that. But the insert in the front, the free download is inside of the Heart of the Caregiver. So if you want more of that, I'll also put the link up for you to be able to purchase the book if you wanted to do that. But we're also going to give you the navigational tool up there for you to navigate your way through the website to be able to download those 5 steps. Now, please know that this is not just a sheet that says those 5 words, because it's harder to see from the computer, but you have examples under each and every one. So when you guys download that and you print it out, you will see those examples under there. So it will be easy to work through, and great if that is, because if you come home from work tonight or you're watching this, you know, you can download it and you can start to go through it. Now that's...
There's also the whole workbook is now online as a course.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. So you can download the workbook right now and watch the videos that go with each chapter. That's possible too. And that's under the online community tab on the website, theheartofthecaregiver.com.
That's awesome. So instead of purchasing the book, they go through it with the videos and then the worksheets and stuff like that they can do. So there's not even, you don't even have to wait. So do your 5 steps, just, you know, transformation, going from overwhelmed to overjoyed, do that. And then if you feel you want to add on to that, you can hop right on to that course. In addition, make sure I know that Mary does some amazing peace retreats that if you want more information when those come up, to get onto her mailing list as well. And maybe in the future, we might be doing, I don't know, a retreat conference or something like that together. So that may be in the works as well. But with that, I thank you guys for taking the time out this afternoon to celebrate with us some more, get empowered, and share that support. It has been a great celebration week. Tomorrow is our wrap-up. Tomorrow night, you don't want to miss it. There's going to be 4 of us. It's going to be hard to handle.
Wow.
Myself being one of us, we are going to be doing the Caregiver Toolbox. So you'll definitely want to tune in. There'll be lots of laughs, lots of fun, as well as lots of education, support, and empowerment. So with that, thank you so much, Mary. I really, really appreciate it. If you guys need any other information, just hop on over to onairadvocate.com. Always know you can, shoot me an email or any questions there. So have a great afternoon, and we will see you guys tomorrow.